Hello friends, welcome back to English classes online. My name is Benjamin. In today's video, we shall be looking at types of comprehension questions and how to answer them correctly. Learn how to answer comprehension questions correctly. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well so that whenever a new video is uploaded on this channel, you will be notified instantly. Without much ado, let's dive into the lesson. A quick look at the agenda for today's episode. Number one, why learn types of comprehension questions? 2, types of comprehension questions at a glance. And 3, illustrating types of comprehension questions with past why questions. So let's begin to take this one by one. Why should we learn types of comprehension questions? As a student, you need to know how to answer comprehension questions correctly in order to pass your English exams excellently. However, the importance of comprehension has gone beyond the classroom and the exam hall, given the fact that many organizations now use comprehension to test the English proficiency of their applicants before employing them. If you are traveling out of the country and you want to take any of these exams, such as IELTS and others, of course, you will be tested. Your knowledge of comprehension will also be tested. So it is important for you to learn, different types of comprehension questions and how to answer them. It is always very important because comprehension simply means understanding, and education has much to do with understanding. You read a text or a passage and you are expected to understand, or even when you listen, to some audio, lectures or passages, and then you'll be asked questions based on that. So it is always very important. Different organizations, they test people's ability to answer comprehension questions. If you are looking for a job, chances are you might be required to answer some comprehension questions. If you are traveling to a foreign country, like UK, and you are to or US, and you are required to take any of these exams, of course, comprehension is always part of it. So that underscores the importance of learning how to answer comprehension questions. Furthermore, comprehension itself is central to success in all fields of life, given that comprehension is about your ability to understand what you have read or heard, which will in turn enable you to explain, analyze, summarize, report, or respond to related questions. So from whichever angle you look at it, the importance of comprehension cannot be really overemphasized. There are various types of comprehension questions, and each type requires a different approach. We are going to examine the various types of comprehension questions one by one and explain how to answer each type of question. That actually is the focus of this lesson. Now, types of comprehension questions at a glance. we have different types of comprehension questions. Number one, factual questions. Two, inferential questions. Now, it might interest you to know that another name for factual questions is direct question. Another name for inferential question is interpretative or evaluative questions. Then number three, you have grammatical questions. Number four, figures of speech questions or questions on figures of speech. Then number five, vocabulary questions. And I call vocabulary questions questions on contextual synonyms. Okay? Now, I will explain this when we come to that. Now, let's begin with factual questions. This type of comprehension question tests your understanding of the facts or ideas discussed in the given passage. Factual questions are also called direct questions because they require picking information directly from the passage. They are direct questions, and when you find a factual or direct question, you can beat your chest that you will find the answer explicitly stated in the passage. That's why it's called a direct question. Now consider this comprehension question, West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2020. Question 6, sub question A. Why did the writer's mother never inform her children of her intention to visit them? All right. Then B. How did Mama while away the hours on the journey? These are factual or direct questions, and in this passage, these facts are clearly stated. Now, if you look at, let's actually take a look at the passage from which this was taken, and then you can see exactly. This is from June 2020, English Language 2 Theory Questions, Section B, which is Comprehension. And then you can see, read the following passage carefully and answer the questions on it. Now look at the passage. My mother never thought it necessary to inform any of her children that she would pay them a visit in Lagos at any time. After all, no child would refuse her entry into their home. She had always been lucky to meet a member of the household each time she came visiting, and it was unimaginable to her that a day would come when no one would be at home to receive her. In her usual manner, Mama boarded a vehicle from the village at noon with all her luggage, which usually comprised the local delicacies we all enjoyed eating whenever she came visiting. Since she was aware of the time of the day everyone would be back home from work, she was not worried when the bus made frequent stops to either pick up or discharge passengers. While the journey lasted, Mama chatted heartily. All right, Mama chatted heartily. Let's try to, yeah. While the journey lasted, all right, Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger who was also going to see her son in Lagos, and the two exchanged telephone numbers. Eventually, the vehicle crawled to a final stop and everyone alighted. Mama flagged down a taxi and headed for her daughter's house. Although the fare demanded by the driver was outrageous and the money on her could not cover it, Mama believed that when she got to the house, her daughter, all right, her daughter or son-in-law would come to her aid by making up the difference. All right. How wrong she was. Unknown to Mama, My husband and I had traveled out of town on one of our numerous official assignments while my son had returned to the university campus. The only person on the premises was the new watchman. Mama's dilemma, however, began with the payment of the taxi fare. When she alighted with some of her luggage, she met the cold, unfriendly stare of a complete stranger. She tried frantically to introduce herself to the watchman, but could not communicate effectively because of the language barrier. To her embarrassment, the taxi driver called her a fraudulent old woman and left his contact number and drove off in annoyance with one of her bags. Mama remembered that the woman with whom she had traveled on the bus had given her phone number, and she decided to call her for help. After what seemed like an eternity, the woman's son drove in his car to fetch Mama. My mother was quite grateful for that, but she will never forget the fact that she had to eat spaghetti and omelette for dinner. That night, I received a call from a complete stranger informing me of my mother's ordeal. I had to rush back to Lagos the following day to bring Mama back home and get her back from the taxi driver. My mother left for the village days after and had since made a point to call before she visits anyone. All right, so that is exactly the passage. And then the direct or factual questions. How did the writer's mother never, or why did the writer's mother never inform her children of her intention to visit them? Now, we go to the passage and you will see the answer directly there. You can look at the green here. This is where you find the answer. My mother never thought it necessary to inform any of her children that she would pay them a visit in Lagos at any time. After all, no child will refuse her entry into their home. So you can see the answer clearly stated here. All right? The answer is clearly stated here. She believed or she knew that none of her children will refuse her entry into their house. That's just quite the answer. That's the clear answer. So you can see that it is a direct question or factual question because the answer is explicitly stated in the passage. All right? And then let's go back to the passage and look at the second question. The second question, question B, how did Mama while away the hours on the journey? Again, let's head back to the passage. You can see here, painted in blue here, you can see. While the journey lasted, Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. So you can see the answer clearly stated here. All right? That is just the answer. How did she while away the time? She was engaged in a conversation with a fellow passenger, or she chatted happily with a fellow passenger. That was how she whiled away the hours during the journey. All right? So now let's get back. Let's wipe away these marks so that we can see quite clearly. So you can see exactly what we mean by factual or direct questions. We have seen these questions taken from the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2020. That is last year's WAEC comprehension questions, and you can see quite clearly the example of factual questions. So whenever you meet a factual question, you need to head back to the passage and look for the answer right there in the passage. All right. So you can see the answer here. The answer to A is that she knew she would always be welcome. She would always be welcome in her children's house. All right. That nobody was going to refuse her entry. Then B, how did she while away the hours? She chatted with a fellow passenger in the bus. All right. So let's now go a little bit further. Now, let's look at some other questions. This one now is taken from West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2004. All right. And the question is, mention two consequences of the usual desperation of Africans to leave their country. So if you read the passage, you will discover that it is about Africans being desperate to leave their countries and travel abroad. All right. So, and these questions are direct questions. All right. This is a direct question. Mention two consequences. And the answer is the two consequences of the unusual desperation of Africans to leave their countries are I, they fall victim to passport and visa fraud. That's one of the consequences. Then young girls end up in forced prostitution. You know, these things are explicitly stated in the passage. You can look for West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2004, then read the passage and then read the questions, and you will discover that in the passage you will find this information explicitly stated. That's another example of factual questions. So in the above example, the answers are presented in short and simple sentences introduced by a preamble. So you can see that you can use a preamble to, present your comprehension questions if a question requires two or more sentences. All right. I taught you something about preamble in answering summary questions. You can check it out in the description section below. You will find links to other videos on comprehension and also on summary questions. They will all be of help to you in developing your knowledge, your skill of answering comprehension and summary questions. Now, in some cases, however, you may have to give your answers in phrases. You see, you may have to give your answers in phrases. One of the illustrations is another question from the same June 2004 WAEC. All right. The question is, take two experiences that Eze looked forward to. You will find the passage, that's the second passage, 2004, second comprehension passage. Then you can again use a preamble and you say the two experiences that Eze look forward to are I, the good life of the city, I, a ride in a luxury bus. All right, so sometimes you may need just you may even answer with some phrases, right? It's not like summary questions where you are compulsorily or mandatorily required to present your answers in sentences. All right? Okay, so let's look at inferential questions, because the second types of questions, comprehension questions, is inferential questions. All right, and here we see that inferential questions demand that you figure out um, the answers based on the things implied in the passage. They are also called interpretative questions because you need to interpret the information available in the passage to be able to arrive at the answer. Consider questions 6D to F in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2019. It is also important you can refer to that particular passage, so you will understand the reference we are making here. Question D is, what does the reference to Adamu's academic performance tell us about him? You see, you go to the passage, you discover that it is not, even the word academic performance is not mentioned in the passage. So you have to figure out, you have to look for where reference is made to Adamu's academic performance, and then you'll be able to figure out, what it tells us about him. All right. Then question E, what is the writer's attitude towards Adam? From the things written in the passage, you'll be able to figure out the writer's attitude towards Adamu, how he viewed him, his opinion about the character of Adamu. All these are not clearly stated, directly stated in the passage, but implied based on the facts stated in the passage. Then question F, what tells us that Adamu was determined to be educated? You need also to figure this out from the facts. These are all inferential questions because you need to figure the questions out based on facts implied but not directly stated in the passage. All right? So now let's go further. Let's look at the inferential questions again. What does the reference to Adamu's academic performance tell us about him? What is the writer's attitude towards Adamu? What tells us that Adamu was determined to be educated? Of course, these are all inferential questions, as we already mentioned. The answers are A. The reference shows that Adamu was hardworking and intelligent. When you read the passage, the words hardworking and intelligent are not mentioned there, but from the things written about Adamu's lifestyle, his activities, how he took his work seriously, and everything he did on daily and periodical basis, you'll be able to figure out that Adamu was hardworking and intelligent. Then E, the writer's attitude towards Adamu was that of admiration and respect, because from the whole thing the writer said about Adamu, you will discover that the writer had an attitude of admiration. He admired Adamu, he respected his intelligence, his brilliance, his hard work. All right? Then F, he got himself enrolled in school and took care of the expenses all by himself. And this is in answer to the question E, which is, that is question F. What tells us that Adamu was determined to be educated? You see, there is no place in the passage where you will read directly that Adamu was determined to be educated, but from the things he did, from his actions, you will discover that he was actually determined to be educated. So these types of questions are called inferential questions. They are questions you have to figure out that are not directly stated in the passage, but indirectly, so to say. All right? Then the third type of comprehension question is grammatical questions. Some comprehension questions require you to state the grammatical name and the function of a particular expression taken from the passage. Consider question 6F. in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2020. Again, we will go back to that passage and you see what has been lifted from the passage, dash, 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 who was also going to see her son in Lagos. And then two questions are asked based on this expression taken directly from the passage. Question I, what grammatical name is given to this expression as it is used in the passage? II, what is its function? You see, these are grammatical questions, so you need to know the English grammatical structures and their functions in order to answer these types of questions directly. Now, okay, I've already stated that we need certain grammatical techniques, devices to answer these questions. To answer these questions, we need to look at the entire sentence from which this expression was taken, and then we use the border principle. I will explain what this means, and the question method to arrive at the grammatical name and function of the given expression. Now, before we actually look at the, let's go directly to the passage. You can see that this is where it was taken from this sentence. While the journey lasted, Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger who was also going to see her son in Lagos. So this underlined expression was taken directly from here, who was also going to see her son in Lagos. And the first question is, what is the grammatical name given to this expression? Now, we are going to look at the entire sentence and we are going to begin to analyze this from here. All right? I have always taught you sentence analysis. You know, Mama chatted heartily with her fellow passenger who, all right, so you can see that this Mama chatted with a fellow passenger. This is a main clause. So we can call this the main clause, MC. So here we are having a complex sentence, all right, a complex sentence. Or if, yes, exactly, a complex sentence. So now, who was going to see her son in Lagos? That is the subordinate clause. All right, so we can say that this is SC, is a subordinate clause. And you know that subordinate clauses are classified according to the function they perform in a sentence. You know, subordinate clauses are either noun clauses or adjectival clauses or adverbial clauses. You can look for a video that I uploaded here that has really given a comprehensive lecture on, you know, clauses in English, you know, how clauses are classified, you know, structurally and according to function, and you'll be able to learn exactly these various functional types of clauses. But let's look at this. So now we have to use the border principle here. What do we mean by border principle? Now, the expression who was also going to see her son in Lagos is the one taken. The question is based on this. And this particular expression shares a common border. This is where it shares a common border with the rest of the sentence. And then the word that it shares a common border directly with is passenger. So this we have to identify. We use the border principle. And so when we take note of the border here, now don't forget it's a grammatical border. Now it's not the border of a country. But one component of the sentence is sharing a common border with another component of the sentence, and the word that is closest to this expression is passenger. Now let's carve out the border here, and then let's in the meantime ignore the main clause, and let's deal with this. And then we will echo this expression, who was also going to see her son in Lagos. Now let's look at it and consider it temporarily. Then now let us ignore this particular expression, and then let's restate the main sentence, the main clause. Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger, full stop. Now, which question do you think arises naturally if you hear this piece of information? Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passengers. There are many possible questions that can arise, but when you have your mind, you focus your attention on this word passenger, which is really the focus of attention, because it shares a common boundary with the expression that we are examining. Then what question do you think arises naturally? Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. Obviously, you will want to know more about this passenger, and so the question naturally is, which passenger? Right? Which passenger? Now, this underlined expression gives us more information, gives us a description of the particular passenger that is being talked about here. So, and then we verify the grammatical category or the word class of this word passenger, and we discover it is a noun. With our grammatical knowledge, we know that anything that gives us more information about a noun must be an adjectival element. It is either an adjective or an adjectival phrase or an adjectival clause. But here we see that it is an adjectival clause because it contains a subject and a verb, who was also going to see her son in Lagos. So an adjective will be a single word, and an adjectival phrase will be a fragment that doesn't really contain a finite verb. But because this contains a finite verb, we can conclude it is an adjectival clause. So this is how we figure out the grammatical name. And having figured out the grammatical name, in the process, we have also identified the function. The function is that it describes the word passenger. It tells us more about the word passenger. And in grammar, we use the word modify. So modifies the noun passenger. All right. So that is how we figure out the grammatical name and the grammatical function. And so as we head back to look at how you can present the answers, having figured them out with these grammatical techniques. So now, one other thing you need to know about presenting your comprehension answers is that each type of comprehension answer has its own specific way of presenting it. For instance, in answering grammatical questions, you don't need to begin to write any sentence or anything. You know, you simply state the name and the function as you have been asked. So you come to here, you write the exact, this is a typo here. This is not G. So because the question is F, so you have to write F here. All right. So your answer should be F. Then I, you write adjectival clause, or if you like, relative clause. They mean the same. An adjectival clause is a relative clause. Then II, which is the function, modifies the noun passenger. So that's how to present your answers to grammatical questions. I hope this is clear. Now let's go to the next type of comprehension question, which is question on figures of speech. Questions on figures of speech are meant to test your knowledge of figures of speech and their usage in the passage. Certain expressions used in the passage are extracted and you are asked what figure of speech it is. You know, to answer this type of question, you must have knowledge of various figures of speech such as simile, metaphor, personification, irony, euphemism, a rhetorical question, paradox, and so on and so forth. Now consider this question. I have stirred up a hornet's nest and should be prepared for a sting. Then question I, what figure of speech is this expression? What does it mean? These questions are taken from the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2017. Answers to these questions don't require to be presented in sentences. You simply state them as follows. When you go to that passage, and I would like you to pick the past question from June 2017 and then read the passage and read the question. When you come to question F, you will see that this question is a question on figures of speech. All right? And so you will look at it, you know, I have stirred up a hornet's nest and should be prepared for a sting, you know. So that is a figure of speech. And if you check in the description section, you will find a video that handles idiomatic expressions, how to interpret sentences, and in one area of that video, you will discover how to interpret idiomatic expressions, which also are closely related to figures of speech. You will see that we use some literary devices, you know, such as metaphor, symbolism, and imagery to figure out the meanings of this figurative language. Now, figure of speech is a figurative language. And if you look at the sentence here, I have stirred up a hornet's nest and should be prepared for its sting. Now, you have to think of the kind of imagery, the kind of image it creates in your mind. And again, you have to understand that it is a human experience that is being narrated here. And when someone says, I had stirred up a hornet's nest and should be prepared for its sting, the person is relating his or her experience. So, in other words, is using this figure of speech to represent a specific human experience. And that is what makes it a metaphor. A metaphor is using something to represent another. For example, if you say that Henry is a lion in the boxing ring, then it is a metaphor because you are using the word lion for Henry, that Henry is a lion, you know. So that is what metaphor is about. And when you also use certain words or certain things to represent your experience, that is also metaphorical. So the answer is metaphor. You know, the meaning is that the writer had caused trouble and will be ready to face the consequences. How do we know? By looking at the image created with the words used here. You have to understand what a hornet's nest means. You know, if you look at some insects that resemble wasp, W-A-S-P, you know, normally hornets do not just usually attack someone, but when you actually stir the nest, then they can go after you and sting you, right? All right. So that is the image created here, and it is the image of trouble. When you have stirred the hornet's nest, the hornet's nest, it means you have looked for trouble somewhere, and then you are going to face the repercussion or the consequences. All right. So that is about a figure of speech. Now let's consider another question. Question G, like a person pursued by a demon. You see, this is taken from, then the question is, what figure of speech is used in this expression? Taken from West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2019. You know, you simply state the answer as simile. Simile is also a figure of comparison, but here you use some explicit words of comparing, such as like or as. You know, in the example of metaphor I gave before, that Henry is a lion in the boxing ring. If we use the word like, if we say Henry is like a lion in the boxing ring, then we are using simile. But if we say Henry is a lion, then we are using metaphor. So there's a close relationship between metaphor and simile in the sense that both of them are figures of description, figures of comparison. But you can see the difference between the two. Now let's move a little further and look at the last type of comprehension question in this video, and that is vocabulary questions. As I earlier mentioned, another name I can call vocabulary questions is questions on contextual synonyms. I will explain to you what I mean by contextual synonym. From the word context, then you have contextual synonyms. I will explain this to you. From the word context, then you have contextual synonyms. Of course, you know that synonyms are words nearest in meaning, synonyms, all right? So contextual synonyms. So you are asked to look for words that mean the same and can replace a given word in the passage. All right, so you will be able to figure out the meaning, and then you look for a word that means the same and can be used, can replace it. That is what makes it contextual. You know, contextual means according to the context. Context means the immediate linguistic environment within which a word or phrase or expression is used, or simply put, how a word is used in a sentence or in a passage. That is the context of that word. So let's now go further to look at, you know, so in this case, these questions are meant, questions of about vocabulary or contextual synonyms are meant to test your understanding of key vocabulary words used in the passage. What is required here is more than just knowing what each word means. You must find out its meaning as used in the passage. That is what makes it contextual. The question requires you to find another word or phrase that means the same and can replace it as it is used in the passage. So that is why I call it contextual synonyms. Now, let's wipe these marks and we'll be able to see quite clearly. Now, take the word man, for example. The meaning of man can change from one context to another, as shown in the following sentence. Sentence I, Musa is a man. The meaning of man in this sentence is an adult male human being, a man. But in sentence 2, we have a different meaning of man. Musa was asked to man the engine room. So the meaning of man changes from being a person to an action. Musa was asked to man the engine room means that Musa was asked to control or to supervise or to take charge of the engine room. So you must examine how a word is used in the passage in order to find another word that means the same and can replace it correctly. That's why it is called contextual synonym, not just any synonym. If you are to find a replacement for man in sentence I above, the answer will be man equals control. In sentence I, man equals person or human being. All right? So you can see exactly how English words change their meaning from one context to another, just like chameleons that change their color from one physical environment to another. Now, let's look at question 6I in the WAEC comprehension question of June 2020. For each of the following words, find another word or phrase which means the same and which can replace it as it is used in the passage. I, unimaginable. I, heartily. I, outrageous. IV, numerous. V, frantically. And VI, fraudulent. Now, let's head to the passage once again and look at these words before we really conclude. All right, so let's look at these words, how they are used in the sentence. I mean, in the passage. The first one, let's go to where it started and begin to look at the underlying words. All right, the first one is outrageous. This is how it is used here. Although the fare demanded by the driver was outrageous, all right, so the meaning of outrageous here is what we have to figure out. It is used to describe fare, all right? Although the fare demanded by the driver was outrageous. So if we are looking at outrageous fare, it is talking about the price of something, the cost of something. And so it was high. Simply the word high. A price can be high or can be very high or can be excessive if you like, all right? Or exorbitant. So you can see when you look at the context of use, you can look at words that can really, collocate. And if you look at the description section, you will find videos that I have uploaded on collocation. All right. So that shows us the meaning of this. All right. So let's now look at other examples. The next underlined word here is numerous. Let's see how it is used. All right. My husband and I had traveled out of town on one of our numerous official assignments. So the word numerous is used to describe official assignments. One of our numerous. So the meaning of numerous here is many. they attend many assignments. The word frequent can also go here. All right. Numerous assignments, many assignments. All right. So that's just the meaning. Then let's look at the next words underlined. So this is how to really figure it out. You have to look at exactly how it is used in the passage before you really conclude, you know, you arrive at the replacement. She tried frantically to introduce herself to the watchman, but could not communicate effectively because of the language barrier. Now, frantically, she tried frantically. Then you can see words like seriously, or she tried hard, or she tried as much as she could. All right, she tried frantically. All right, so when you look at how it is used in a sentence, then you can easily find the replacement. You may not actually know the exact meaning of that word, but by using what we call uh, uh, just what we call just figuring it out, figuring it out, then this is what we call contextualization. When you use the method of contextualization, you contextualize. When you contextualize, it means that you are looking at the word in in conjunction or in company with other words that are close to it. She tried frantically. So a word that collocates with her, she tried hard, she tried seriously, she tried as much as she could, So when you look at it, you'll be able to contextualize and the replacement will come naturally. All right. So this is the appropriate method to answer this type of comprehension question. The next underlined word here is fraudulent. Then let's look at the sentence. The taxi driver called her a fraudulent old woman. A fraudulent old woman. From the word fraud, you have fraudulent. So again, you need to have a large active vocabulary. This is why this type of question is called vocabulary questions, because it is testing your knowledge of vocabulary, how large and active your vocabulary of the English language is. All right, that is exactly the way it is. All right. So from here, we understand that the word fraudulent can be replaced with a word like dubious or dishonest or deceitful, because you can also figure it out by looking at what happened here. All right. From the context here, Mama's dilemma, however, began with the payment of the taxi fare. So it is all about payment. She didn't have the complete fare to pay, and that was the problem. So from that, you can figure out why the taxi driver called her a fraudulent old woman. She was trying to discuss with the watchman to see if she could get the money to complete the fare. She had expected that on arrival, her daughter or her son-in-law was going to pay the fare. But getting there, she discovered they were not at home, and she had no way to pay the money. So it is all about her inability to pay the fare. That was the reason the taxi driver called her a fraudulent old woman. So sometimes, even when you do not know the exact meaning of a word used in a passage, you can contextualize. That will give you an idea as to what the meaning could be, and you can figure out the replacement. All right? So these are the various techniques that you need to use in order to try and figure out, the meanings of words. All right, so we have been able to look at the various words. Unimaginable can be unbelievable. Well, it's like we didn't really look at unimaginable. Let's look at where it was used. Okay, we can see it here. Unimaginable. All right, so she had always been lucky to meet a member of the household each time she came visiting, and it was unimaginable to her that a day would come when no one would be at home to receive her. Unimaginable means unthinkable. It never really occurred to her. All right, or inconceivable. You know, she never thought, even the word impossible, it was impossible to her. That is unbelievable. Let's use the word unbelievable. It seemed unbelievable to her that a day would, she never just thought about it. She never believed that a day would come that she would meet the house completely empty. All right, so that is exactly how to figure out. So unimaginable can be unbelievable or inconceivable or unthinkable. But you have to pick just one. Don't line up words like this. I just wrote this for the purpose of teaching. So if you pick unbelievable, then you have to strike these ones out. And then you pick unbelievable. And that will be your answer. Heartily can be happily. Again, let's go back to the passage. We didn't really look at how heartily was used in the passage. All right. All right. So let's look. So you can see heartily here. While the journey lasted, Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. She chatted heartily. So you can replace this with happily or joyfully or excitedly. When you chat with someone and you are really passionate about it. All right, so that's really what it means. Okay, so let's go back. Heartily can be happily, excitedly, or joyfully. Again, you just have to pick one and then you strike out the other. Don't use different options because that is not acceptable. Outrageous can be extremely high or exorbitant or excessive. Now, if you decide to use extremely high, then you can mark it and then you cancel out the other ones. Just use one option. Numerous can be many, and if you pick many, then forget about the other one. Then frantically can be very hard. She tried very hard. Now, or seriously, if you pick very hard, then you cancel out the other one. Fraudulent can be dubious or dishonest or deceitful. If you choose dubious, then you cancel out the other one. So that is how to answer questions on contextual synonyms, or how to answer vocabulary questions. So this is where we are going to draw the curtain in today's video. We have actually been looking at, types of comprehension questions, learning how to answer comprehension questions correctly by learning the different types of comprehension questions that are likely to come out in any English exam. And like I really emphasized, the need to learn how to answer comprehension questions has gone beyond the classroom or the exam hall. Today, if you are looking for a job in a very large and important organization, they might want to test you in different areas. And one of these areas might be comprehension. If you are taking any of the exams when you are traveling to an English-speaking country and they want to know, to be sure that you can communicate in the language. If you are tested, then of course you should be able to answer comprehension questions as well. If you are going for an exam such as West African Senior School Certificate Examination or National Examinations Council NECO Senior School Certificate Examination or any of the other equivalent exams, of course, you will always meet comprehension questions. So it has been a very, very important video that we had to really work on. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a number of lessons that will help you to increase your knowledge of comprehension and how to answer comprehension questions correctly. Now, if you actually enjoyed the video, make sure you like this video and share it with your friends and relations. If you have not subscribed to the channel, the time has come for you to really hit the subscribe button and make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you subscribe, make sure you click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video is uploaded on the channel, you will be notified instantly. If you have any questions, any concerns, any suggestions, then you can leave them in the comment section below. Of course, most of the videos I upload or I have actually uploaded on this channel have been in direct response to people's suggestions. So if you have any topic that you would like me to discuss in subsequent videos, mention them in the comment section, and I will actually respond promptly. I want to say a big thank you to all of you for giving your massive support to this channel. It is with your support that we have been able to cross the 1,000 subscribers mark within a very short time. And that actually is a great motivation to me, because it shows that so many of you out there are really finding value in this channel, and you are the reason why I do all that I do in this channel. So it's really a happy thing to discover that you are really finding value, and I promise to really do everything within my ability to ensure that I provide value consistently on this channel. Apart from the English language topics we discussed to help you to increase your proficiency in the language and also to pass your exams with flying colors, we also teach other skills such as content writing, content marketing, digital marketing, copywriting, because language is a powerful tool for content creation. And content creation has become a very important form of marketing in today's online-driven global economy. And of course, you can check out some of the videos we have uploaded that will help you to, derive a lot of benefits and learn ideas, new ideas that will help you to start your own online business and to make money online using different of the strategies and techniques we have discussed in the videos. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye for now, and remain blessed.